Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of Real Reviews. We really need the jingle or something, John. I've got John with me today, and we've got three amazing reels. I think everyone knows us by now, but yeah, my name is Greg Lester. I'm a sound designer at Soundcuts, and with me is...
Hi, I'm John Kelliher. I am an audio designer at No Breaks Games, and yeah, super happy to be here again.
And hello, Hallie and Steve, welcome.
Hello.
Good to see you. And let's look at my cool new Reaper theme. Look at this. Folks, I have done some incredible optimization changes in my workflow. Thanks to John, actually, who's been very helpful and helped me out a bunch in getting this. This is, by the way, the new... It's not new, it's the Reaper
Reaper
Tips
Tips
theme. Oh
theme.
my god, that took a long time. I'm sorry, I'm recovering from being ill for 4 days, so if I fumble words and get brain fog and all of that, I'm gonna blame it on that.
It's really cool though. I kind of started like changing up my workflow um, for making music in Reaper um, versus doing sound design because I guess I needed that sort of like cognitive separation between, you know, I mean, they're both creative processes, but segmenting them and that. But I found that the Reaper Tips theme is actually very much oriented towards being like a music-based DAW. So yeah, and rather than dishing out, multiple thousands of pounds on a new MacBook, I thought I might as well learn how to use Reaper to make music instead. So it's been going really well. It's a lot of work, but Greg and I have been inspiring each other to do a lot of, workflow optimizations within Reaper,
Yeah,
and it
look at
seems to be
this.
going
Oh
really,
my
really well.
god, switching themes. Incredible. But it's just messed up my video window. Ah, there we go. And hey, Orin. Hey, Jake. And hey, Annabelle. That is welcome to the chat. That is funny. Friend of mine. We play League of Legends together. Reaper course when? Yeah.
Oh,
Oh my. Well, next year maybe because we're planning to do some cool stuff. So I think that might be
yeah,
a
absolutely.
opportunity. Reaper Masterclass. We've got some good stuff. Right.
Yeah,
Anyway,
for sure.
let's get into some reels. Starting with Jake Greenstein or Greenstein. Um. Right. Ooh, very nice. Very, very nice. Fantastic reel. Where's my claps? I don't have it here. I have it in my other setup. Damn it. I need to add my to the stream deck. The whoops. Um, I have a whole. There we go. Unfortunately, you can't hear it, John. I need to set up a Discord soundboard for that, but I have a bunch of cool samples and stuff. Yeah. Hello, Green. Um, cool. First impressions. So overall, solid selection of clips. Really nice kind of array of different scenarios and kind of like action bits. There's always good stuff going on here, and it kind of showcases a range of different stuff, which I really like. But it is still very focused. It's kind of like AAA focused, I can see. The overall quality of sounds and the choice, kind of like stylistically, storytelling, all very spot on in my opinion. On that end, really, really fitting stuff. Nothing that's stuck out to me at all. Other than that, also like from a mix perspective, I think a lot of it is very bold. I like it. Some of the kind of like close explosions and stuff were slightly distorted, but not like clipping, but rather stylistically distorted. That's cool. That's very trendy at the minute, but works really well, especially with that. What was it? It's not called StarCraft, with the StarCraft trailer where you have very kind of like grungy soundscape. Um, One thing that I have to mention is this is a sacrilege point that we always mention, but it starts with silence. Don't start your reel with silence, especially when it's like in Reaper. Then it's like, okay, cool, no problem. We can see where it starts. But if I'm listening to this on my own and I'm like, oh, well, it's quiet, I'm gonna turn it up, and then I blast myself when the sound does set in. And yeah, it just kind of gets you off on the right stage with sound. So use that opportunity, and maybe put in something here. Or a thing that a lot of people do is the following: they chop up the start and bring it forth. Sorry, my mouse is a bit bugged. Look at this. I can't drag and drop. This is how bad it's gotten. And basically just fade it in. So they have like fade in, and you start with that kind of like fading it in and then bringing it into the reel, which is quite a nice way to do things.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's sort of the bare minimum when it comes to like title cards and stuff like that. Definitely no silence. If you haven't got anything to put there, then lead in with a bit of ambience or something like that before all the action kind of kicks in.
Correct.
It's the easiest way to go, and you won't annoy or deafen people watching your reels.
Yep. Hey, Miguel. Good to see you. John, any further first impressions from yourself before we dive into the nitty-gritty?
Yeah, pretty much everything you said. It's very AAA focused and also very oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, very AAA focused and also very cinematic focused as well. And I know that that's it's definitely a like an avenue for having like cinematic sound designers and stuff like that. But one thing that I would always say is that kind of keep your options as open as possible. And I would ask the question like, what does this person design like sound like when they're designing to like game like like in-game stuff? I'd be curious to see, because obviously cinematic sound design and in-game sound design are quite different in the way that you need to approach them. So that's like very, very nitty-gritty, but certainly something that I would like consider with your own reels is, what are you trying to put yourself across as? Are you trying to put yourself across as like an in-game sound designer, or are you trying to put yourself across as like a solely cinematic sound designer? So definitely a question worth considering.
Yeah, that is a great point, actually. Also, quick thing here. The visual stutter, and this is definitely not me. So just make sure that when you're submitting stuff, obviously to hear it's totally fine. It's a safe environment. But when you're submitting stuff to a company, just make sure that it all plays back neat and nice.
Yeah, quintuple check your work, peer check it, get as many people to check it as possible, make sure that the formats are correct, make sure that they're YouTube links rather than Vimeo links, because Vimeo can,
Yes.
Vimeo will be like age protected for the most part, and then you'll need to have to sign in. And it's just increasing the amount of friction before someone is able to like actually properly assess your work.
Yeah, that's actually correct. Which this might have been the cause of that, actually, thinking about it, because I had to record this from Vimeo, and I had to log in as well. And there was a option to do a Google Drive link. I thought that I had made that mandatory, but apparently not, which I need to revise. But yeah, make it as easy as possible for anyone who's reviewing the work, because if you're reviewing 100 to 300 reels, then any type of barrier is pretty much a big minus point, because we don't want to spend our time trying to listen to the reel in the first place. We want to actually spend the time listening to it actively. Cool. Let's dive in. First clip is Apex. Nice. So here, main points for me are, we start off here with a very literal, you see kind of like the character, not much going on, and then you hear like an impact and a whoosh. When I think of things like ambience and things like storytelling, a lot of it is what is happening off the screen, how do we want the person to feel, and really what is happening in the grand scheme of things that we don't see. So potentially this could be started off with something like a roar. You could do this again in your trailer here or whatever. You could have the roar come in, followed into, and the ambience, bring it into this clip, which then provides the context for it and a little bit of like background information. And then here again we zoom in. We kind of just have shooting, but there's not a lot else going on. Would love to hear more of the creature, more ambience around it, and basically things that are happening off screen. This is a big one, and this is especially important for also what John said earlier when you're thinking of designing for gameplay. Because when you're doing it cinematically, of course, it's like, okay, well, everything that's on screen, and then there's stuff that doesn't exist, it's off screen. But when you're designing for gameplay, there's a ton of stuff happening off screen. And when you're designing in terms of actually putting assets into a game, that's also always something to think about in terms of attenuation and stuff, is like what is happening around the player, what can we hear, how far can we hear it, stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's the main part for me. I'd love to get a bit more out of those like monster screams. I feel like there's a big focus on the characters and a little bit less on the actual monster. I think you could definitely bring in some more of the like yeah, more of the movements of the creature and bigger roars with multi-layered kind of yeah, make it have a little bit more character, I guess is what I'm trying to say. How does that tongue sound when it first whips out? Is it like wet and fleshy, kind of those type of things? Also with the impacts, how does that sound on the skin of this creature? Things like that. Yeah, John, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think that it's always the skill of like storytelling is like a never-ending skill that you constantly develop, and I think the biggest thing about storytelling, or kind of like the trick with it, is that you as a sound designer are trying to paint not only what you see on screen, but everything that's outside of it as well. And that includes anticipation in the same way that like animators anticipate actions with sort of like lead-ins and sort of like lead outs for stuff. You kind of need to do the same. So like Greg said before, there's like a big arm that kind of like comes down and hits the first character to begin with. It's like, don't start playing that sound right when it hits. Like there's going to be like a big kind of like airy whoosh before it comes in. You'd probably even have like a sub drop in there and like some big whooshy kind of stuff, and then like you have the impact, but also coming out as well, you probably want to have something there as well. And then you want to apply that kind of thinking to everything as well. Like Greg said, that there might be roars going on. There might be, like you can't tell from this clip that there are like what, a dozen other characters in, or whatever it is, like five or six other characters, until you see five or six other characters. Whereas you as a storyteller could go like, oh, actually, you know what? There's a whole battle going on around, or there's like other characters shouting to each other, and you can use VO to do that. And it's the biggest hurdle to really overcome, like at a sort of like entry level, or sort of junior level, um, uh, like position or mentality, let's say. Um, and yeah, you can do a lot. There are no rules really. You can do a lot, but I think like it really adds to the believability of it. Like like you're really trying to sell the space that it's in. And I think that mentality can be applied to everything, with the gunshots, with loading, with all the foley, like there's a character running towards the camera and stuff. You can lead in with footsteps beforehand, and you can bring in things like breathing and panting before then. So yeah, and that's pretty much everything about storytelling. And you'll probably hear us go on and on about it throughout all of this and every other live stream that we do. But it really is the thing that sets people apart. But I also think in terms of the mix, I think the mix is good. But again, it does actually come back to storytelling, where it's like you need to focus the most relevant things on screen. You need to focus the gunshots when the gun's shooting, pull down everything else while the guns are shooting. When a big impact comes in, then focus the soundscape on that one thing happening. And it really helps to lead the listener or the viewer to like what's most important at that moment. Whereas currently everything is just happening at the same time. And I think that where this could be improved is to sort of like automate in like volume, like automation for each track. Like at that moment there where the rockets are firing, you probably want to mostly hear the rockets firing and the impact, and then you'll have like the monster roaring after that. So yeah.
Nice job on those whooshes, though. Stuff like that is really cool. I think a big one is always the non-diegetic elements, which are things that aren't necessarily seen on screen. Things like cinematic booms and risers and stuff like that. And yeah, those are nice. Those can add great flavor. And yeah, it doesn't always have to be literally everything that we see. Also, hey, Presley. Awesome to see you. Cool. Let's move on. And we probably will... We're not going to spend as much time on each of these clips. A lot of it will be repeated anyway. And we'll do this for all reels probably. We'll focus on one clip very much and then kind of like copy-paste some of those things over. So yeah. Yeah, absolutely love the creature here is a huge highlight for me. I think again here, so this is cool, we see what's happening, but then as soon as we go up here, for example, I would love to hear already some artillery explosions in the distance, and the fact that we are experiencing war, heavy war, modern or postmodern warfare, I guess. The gunshot is great. Again, like I said before, like the distortion makes it sound pretty gritty. And then here, again, love those whooshes. But I want to hear more of the distant kind of like battle going on. And then I think this is excellent. The transition here, though, it feels like these sounds need to be carried over earlier. It's like they need to be, like John said, kind of like happening before we already transition to the next scene, to make it smoother, because the people are like shooting already, and then we can kind of like bring it in video edits, or like in cinematography and film. What you see a lot is oftentimes also in like YouTube videos and stuff that are more cinematic. You see the dialogue, like people speak while there's still something else happening, and then the shot of them speaking starts. So kind of like play around with these things to make the transition smoother. Not everything has to be point on point literal. Yeah. And then here, I think just in regards to those guns, I would love to have them sound like even more low end and beefy, personally. The big artillery ones, to set them apart a bit more. But yeah, other than that, I think we've covered most of it in the previous clip. And I think, yeah, obviously we could spend a ton of time nitpicking. Maybe at some point we need to do like a full-on 1 hour deep dive or something in the reel, although I think that'd be a bit much. But yeah, any further comments that we haven't really mentioned in the previous clip already, John?
Sorry, I think you keep cutting out every now and again.
Uh-oh, it's my internet. It can't handle streaming. Just
Yeah.
said any further comments that we haven't necessarily covered yet in the previous clip regarding this one.
Yeah, for me, I think everything still applies here. Like in terms of storytelling, and everything you said is spot on, Greg. Things like the ambience. I think the ambience is like probably one of the biggest ones here, in terms of like what's happening in the background, and bookends leading in and out of stuff. For me, I can't tell if it's the stream or not, but I feel like the overall kind of mix of this is quite like mid heavy, or a sort of like low mid heavy. And what I feel is missing on, at least from what I can hear, is the kind of like sharper, higher end kind of glitter that makes things feel like shinier. So more high end transient stuff in the gunshots, and there's like the big worm thing that comes out at the end and stuff, and I would expect to hear a little bit more kind of just like shimmer in there, to just make the things that are like most relevant kind of like pop out a bit more. Feel free to play the clip.
Love the debris on that, though. Very nice.
Yeah, it's really cool. The thing that I really did like was the sort of like mech transformation at the start. I thought that was like really, really spot on. But the only thing that made it feel kind of or the thing that it could really improve on is actually everything behind it. I think that like the fact that it's so isolated without all the background stuff makes it feel weaker than it actually would be if it was there. So yeah, definitely something to work on. But the transformation itself is, yeah, dope.
Nice, awesome. We're gonna skip the last clip due to time. But yeah, I think, Jake, we've covered most of it with these two. Especially from this one, there's a lot less action. Here mainly again about like. Yeah, for this one, honestly, I think the main thing is because there's not too much going on. You can see here, in terms of dynamic range, it's very soft. You can bring up the Foley a lot more. When you've got an overall quiet scene that isn't crazy dynamic, then you can bring everything up a bit louder to compensate for it. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to turn up the volume here. And then the other thing is, again, ambience, unless it's just very quiet and we can't hear it. But I think if we turn it up... Yeah, no, it's good. It's just too quiet. Basically, just make sure that the volume is appropriate for the clips, because then again, you don't want the person reviewing to have to write the faders themselves. You want to make sure that the mix is very solid. Cool. Well done. Overall, fantastic reel. Great work. And yeah, nice one. Thank you so much for submitting. We have got James Reeve next. Nice. This one has been submitted for ages, so sorry for not getting to it earlier, James. But finally. Oof. Smooth transitions. Very nice. Sweet selection of clips and some great sounds. So fantastic, fantastic reel. Very, very nice. First impressions. First impressions is we don't have any. Oh no, we do. Do we have it for this? No, we don't. Okay. Well, James, you missed your lower third for marathon, unfortunately. Just make sure that that's in. I think it's in for like all the rest of the stuff. Yeah.
Is it? It doesn't come in later, does it?
Does it? No. I don't think so.
No.
Cool. Here, very, very long black transition. No sound. Again, just make use of your, make use of your time. All this stuff can be cut. You've done some fantastic transitions before with your, like, this. Just kind of like here as well. Make sure that you have your time maximized. Your cost to footage ratio, whatever you want to call it. I think one of the points for me is overall is that the mixes are quite there's a pretty high dynamic range. You can see it visually and also hear it. I wanted to turn it up multiple times in like some of these early clips, and then here it was like, okay, yeah, this is a nice volume. I feel also, I hope you can back me up on this, John. I mean, visually I can see it, but my ears are still a little bit blocked because I have, like I said, I've been suffering from a pretty bad cold. So my clarity of hearing is not at peak at the moment. But yeah, in terms of the mix, I would just say make sure that you have more consistency across your clips. Retain dynamic range, but just make sure that the actual full dynamic range of the entire reel is about the same. And this was also in terms of like some of the individual elements. I think this is especially apparent in this Last of Us clip, where, for example, the vocals feel like they need to be a lot louder, and I'm not exactly sure if this is due to the actual just clip. So I'm gonna turn it up and listen to it again. But yeah, I think that is one of the bigger things. think other than that, there's not a huge amount that stands out to me. Probably just like adding a couple more details, but overall, I think the reel is really good. There was nothing that really stood out in terms of the full thing. What do you think, John? Let me know your first impressions.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a really killer reel, and I think that yeah, he's been doing a fantastic job. I think probably one of the biggest things that stands out to me, as you mentioned, Greg, is the consistency across all the clips. And obviously, while you're improving and making new stuff, you obviously want to show everything that you've been working on and stuff. But I think that sorry, it's James, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that James needs to make a decision about like the priority, or not the priority, but like the uh what the best clips are. And I think that the marathon clip to me feels so much better than all the rest of the clips. Not that the other clips aren't good, but it's just like it feels like really, really ultra high quality, that when it goes to like the next clips, by the time that it gets to like the Spider-Man one, I felt like there was like a bit of disparity. Is this the same reel? The mixes were quite different. The Spider-Man one felt like very there was a lot of focus in the low end, and not enough focus on the sort of like shimmery highs that I mentioned for the previous reel. And whereas in the marathon one, it felt like it was really all quite there. Like the whole frequency range was spot on, the dynamics were spot on as well. And then yeah, as you mentioned with The Last of Us, I felt like there were little pockets where there was like lacking detail, or things were a little bit too quiet, so the dynamic range wasn't necessarily like spot on. I think particularly for that character there, that the zombie that gets killed there, there felt like there was like a little bit of like a hollowness to that. Um, the other thing that I wanted to say was that the transitions could probably do with a little bit more work in terms of like lead-ins to it. I think probably the main one to work on would be the God of War one, where I feel like you can probably play this, Greg. But
Yeah.
the God leading into the God of War one, it's just like a crack of thunder, but it's so instant that it felt quite abrupt between the two clips.
Yeah, that's true. And especially with that,
Yeah.
like, if I were, if I was like, yeah, listening to this in real, I'd be like, okay, oh, well, this is turned up already as well. So I'm like, ooh, this is very quiet. Jump scare!
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think it just like again, like we were talking about before, the lead-ins, like make it cinematic. Like that whole moment is really cinematic. So just like build up with like some electric riser or something, and then come in with that
Yeah.
that sort of like that lightning bolt. So yeah, so I think it's a really dope reel, and I'm nitpicking, but I think that the thing to do with this would either be work on new redesigns that match the quality of the marathon clip, or go back and revisit the ones that you've already done and bring them up to the same like quality bar. Again, they're all dope and they're all great, but I think the consistency is one of the things that that I feel could really do with like work to bring it to that next level.
Yeah. Also, hello Noah and Owen. Also, Owen, congrats on your job. Mega awesome. Totally off topic. But I think as well, one thing I want to positively highlight though is it's great that you've done like some gameplay stuff, which is really good. Because we said like it's often very tricky to do gameplay compared to just cinematics, because there's a bit more nuance to it. So yeah, that is one of the things that is very good. Cool. Some
Yeah.
nitpicking. I think yeah, I'm trying to think what. There's a lot of clips in here. John, do you want to pick one and I'll pick one, and we both do on those? Or
Yeah, for sure. I think we've already talked about the Last of Us one. I think the
yeah,
Last of Us is really good, but just needs a bit of sort of
yeah.
like
I have a couple of things
volume
to add to that
consistency.
actually, but other than that, yeah, we can touch on that quickly.
Yeah, sure. The marathon one, I don't think we need to talk about because
Yeah.
it's dope. God of War. Um, hmm, I might talk about God of War. I think in terms of the what was after that, there was Spider-Man, and then there was the Modern Warfare one.
Yes. That is juicy. I will just go through them. Whatevs. Um,
Well, I was going to say I'm happy to talk about the God of War one if we're going to pick two,
yeah.
because I think that everything else will be relevant for the other two. The only thing I would say about the Modern Warfare one is like it's really good. The storytelling's really good. Just the explosion at the end is there are probably too many explosions that happen one like consecutively. And I would just say have a look at like how other games might achieve it, or like how other films or whatever might achieve it, because usually you would have like a big explosion and then you would have like a big rush at the
Yeah.
end, but not sort of explosion slightly bigger and another explosion that's like closer and stuff like that. So yeah, reference.
Yeah.
There's no shame, and in fact there is only glory in referencing how other people do stuff.
Glory in referencing. Right, I'm just gonna quickly talk about this Last of Us clip, so I'm gonna bring it up a little bit, and then we're gonna skip that, because I know this is an old clip as well, and if my mouse wouldn't be glitchy, that'd be very helpful. Okay, so one of the big things here is gameplay. We have the shot, which is our feedback, but then we also need to hear a impact sound, especially in like a game like Last of Us. So I really want to hear some kind of like fleshy impact sound. Yes, we're not going to hear it at a distance, but like super important for the feedback in this one. Once again here, impact onto the zombie, and then like the explosion. Want to hear more flesh, way more flesh, and then here like you've got the rattle and stuff like that, but want to hear more environmental stuff because there's not a lot going on. So it's like I really want to hear that ching 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 ching, and maybe some for stuff splatting around, and like the gas that is like around us, because there's not much happening. So this is important gameplay information. There is gas, and now I want to hear the zombie running up already before, and like yeah, it feels just really really quiet comparatively. You can see this here also in the dynamic range, so really bring up those vocals, make it sound like more dangerous, and yeah, actually, so we can hear it. Those knife sounds are juicy. I like the little for like the cue of like stabbing and stuff. That's really good. But again, here
I
I would
think
like to have the gas and stuff.
just a note on the gas and stuff. I think I've just after a couple of listens, I think that what James might be going for was like a muffled, like while you're in the gas, there's like a muffled sound, because you can hear a lot of the like low end of the footsteps and stuff like that. But I think there's something that's not like really translating quite as well with that. So I think you just need to go, if you're going to go for that kind of like aesthetic or that kind of effect, and like you really need to like over exaggerate it to make it like very obvious that when you're in the gas there's like a big low pass like happening, and yeah, and then sort of bring it back with the whatever you call it, like
Yeah.
the kill at the end.
Cool. Right, this was your one, yeah?
Yeah, cool. So I think one of the biggest ones with this is the I don't want to use the word storytelling again, but I think it's kind of the all of the impacts Like the impacts feel like there's a sound for the impact, but they're not necessarily representative of the thing that's like being hit and what is hitting. You know, I think probably the best example of this is the axe hitting Thor there, and they really need to be exaggerated.
Good
Go back to it just 1 sec.
practice as well is to listen to your mix very quietly and then very loudly and figure out, like, can I still hear stuff? Listen to your mix while eyes closed. And I'll do it normal volume.
I think the troll getting dropped there as well is also another one that feels like I want to hear rubble. I want to hear like big meaty impact. I want to hear like ice cracking. I want to hear like just really big cinematic like hit or like thud or something like that to like really over exaggerate the weight of this beast. And the same with like Kratos' axe. I think that like there's a punchy hit in there, but I think that there needs to be, it's an axe, so it needs to be sharp, and you need to hear a sort of like really cutty kind of metallic sounds for actually hitting to give it that that sense of danger and power. Because I think currently it sounds a little bit more like
Uh-oh, we've lost John.
Could just be applied to all of the other like big impacts in this. Is that yeah, like what object is hitting what other object, and just really go hyper real with it and over exaggerate. I think it was Presley who was the one who said, it's harder to add than it is to take away, and just like add as much as possible to begin with, and then start like taking stuff away to like sort of clean up your mix or remove the elements that aren't necessary. But I feel like the impacts in particular are the ones that could do with work in this. Everything else sounds really cool. Maybe a little bit more to do with ambience, but it's like heavy combat, so I don't really know how much ambience you need.
Heavy combat ambience. Not. I'm joking. Cool. So this for me, I think this is the biggest part of feedback in this clip. Really, it's like this is really cool. Oh yeah. Also here once again, there's like a lot of silence before the transition, so kind of like cutting it down. There's this like kind of like pause, and then with the scream, and it doesn't quite feel like it works visually. It feels like the scream should be the big main element, and the rocks are kind of more of a, oh shit, there's rocks, and yeah, I will bring up the scream way more and have like the wind gust of that and like sand particles flying and stuff like that as the big main thing. This is cool. Hello, disperser. I love the ding of the lift. That is a beautiful detail. Very nice. This is cool. Yeah, this is also nice. I just think here it's kind of like, I love to hear, at the moment we just hear like the webs, and from a storytelling perspective, I get it, like that's the main focus, but it feels like everything else is kind of quiet in that scenario, and I would either like to have a little bit more of like wind or something in cinematic, something to add to the scene basically.
City ambience for sure.
It's not disperser, Well, in that case, there's some,
All pass.
yeah, all pass or pre-sampled with disperser. There's definitely something in there.
I'm at meta, bro.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. I think just quickly
Yeah,
on that last part, I think that there's like a perfect opportunity when Spider-Man's kind of like on those webs, and all you really hear is the webs. But that's a perfect opportunity right there in that shot to bring up the like city ambience.
yeah. Maybe have
You
like
know,
a
because
wee wee. There's stuff going on in the distance, like explosions and things. Sorry, John, I cut you off.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going from like really high intensity, like flying and impacts and like all that sort of stuff, to now we've finally stopped. Like, let's actually like soak in the environment just a tiny bit, and then right before a sort of like jumping back and going back into the combat again, it's just a nice kind of like palate cleanser to be like, all right, well, now that we kind of like reset our ears from all of the big punchy like combat stuff, we can just take like a little bit of a breather, and then you duck it back again as soon as you start flying, and just bring in like all that wind ambience and all that like yeah,
Yeah,
great motion sounds.
cool. I'm just gonna touch on this, and then we're gonna go to Orton's reel because we're running out of time. So the main thing with this is this part here, like the complete silence, I think. I think the complete silence works really well when you have an immediate explosion afterwards, like this. But it doesn't work as well when you have like a soft explosion. It kind of dampens the effect of that. It's like the whole idea of having silence is to contrast, and then to start it off low energy again is kind of like a stalling the engine a little bit of that like momentum that you gain through the high intensity. So which kind of like does it by itself already here, if that makes sense. It's already kind of like... So I would either get rid of this and just edit it yourself to do this, or to have some kind of like what is it called, like a high whistle of like you know, when artillery flies above, like, and then into this. I think that will work really, really well. So one of those two methods. And that was like the worst mouth artillery. But there we go. Anyways, James,
Yeah.
awesome reel, man. Great stuff. Thanks for submitting. And yeah, well done. Like, insane improvement overall from like the previous stuff that I've seen from you. So yeah, really, really awesome job. And yeah, really, really well done. Fantastic work. Cool.
Oh no, you cut out again. I think it might be your webcam.
I hope I am. Is my mic good quality on your end?
Yeah, the mic's fine, but I think if you're
Weird.
yeah, because I can see your live stream while you're I can see your yeah, your screen, but when you cut out, then there's the Windows sound of USBs coming in
Oh,
and out.
fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just let you know if
Anyways,
you cut out.
all right, let's go. Disperser. Nice. Very, very cool. Sweet, sweet sound design in there. Quick general impressions. great selection of clips until basically the end ones. Having stuff like that in there, it's cool, but in general, having these like out of context single sounds is really not as interesting as having like a full redesign, because this is relatively easy to do. It's a lot harder to do a full like gameplay, or yeah, basically where there's more than just a single thing going on, in terms of like showcasing your skills. So obviously, if you've not got that many clips yet, then that's understandable, but just make sure to add that in. Ableton vocoder. Okay, fair enough. I'm getting totally whatever blasted today by my wrong. But yeah, it's all the same anyway, right? It's all the low mid meta. I'm gonna say low mid meta instead of disperser. Cool. Yeah, you're okay. Low replacing last skip. Yeah, exactly. Overall, general impressions is all the stuff that you've got in there is very very cool. Chill out with the vocoder. Low mid meta is great, but it's like that one Marshall McGee video. If you haven't watched it, it's the Starfield one. It's a great one. It's a secret sauce, and when the secret sauce is used on everything, it's like you can, it's a bit of more of a it's just a very saucy meal, I guess. And we want a bit more contrast. So yeah, kind of like pick and choose where you put those low mid meta sounds, that vocoder stuff, basically. The other thing is really for me is the non-diegetic stuff. So it's once again we go back to the first real storytelling. It's very literal at the moment, and this is especially noticeable in the first two clips, in the Battlefield and the Call of Duty one, where everything, it's like, okay, cool, I can see what's happening on screen, I can hear the things that are happening on screen, but it's not really conveying what I should feel, but rather kind of like, oh, there's some Foley here, there's a gunshot here. I'd love to hear more what is happening off screen. What are the transitions in terms of the things like cinematic risers, cinematic impacts. Yeah, there's you can hear those in James and Jake's reels a lot more. So if you need like inspiration, I guess those are actually reels to just which you've just listened to, obviously, to see where there's like some nice use of those for the transitions. Um, yeah, in terms of also camera movements and stuff like that, whooshes and all of that is really good. Yeah, I think that is the basic rundown. Yeah, John, let me know what I've missed.
Yeah, for sure. I think just to piggyback off what you were saying about like cinematic rises and stuff like that, just a thought that came across my mind is sometimes I see reels that kind of take music into consideration, as in like this would sound a lot better if there was music in the background and that. And I think that I used to do that as well, and I used to think that like I'm being clever by like anticipating that I'm leaving space for music and stuff. But I think because this is a sound design reel, like there are no rules, provided there is no music, as in like no kind of like soundtrack over the top of it, because the whole point is to show your sound design skills. And especially when it's cinematic clips, go ham. Just go nuts with cinematic risers and like having in, like Greg said, like short bits of silence before like a huge explosion or something like that, or watch trailers, watch marketing videos. Red Bull videos are super thrilling and exciting and stuff. And I think the whole point is that, like, again, as a storyteller, like this space dogfight. But I think that there are still lessons that you need to consider. So like you still need to consider, like, at this specific moment, what do I want the player to feel? Do I want them to feel like they're in danger? Is their health low? Then you kind of like change the mix.
Uh-oh. The internet
changing to make you feel a certain way.
just cut off twice. I'm sorry, John. But I think we got most of it. It's... Oh, you cut off again.
Oh no, I can see your video, so I think that it might be you, but unless someone
It's
else
me.
was in the
It's
chat.
my internet can't handle streaming and video calling at the same time, I guess.
Oh man, well, I'll TLDR and basically say that like your um don't be afraid to put in cinematic rises, tell a story and make people feel a certain way. That's
Yes.
the summary the summary of it. I think one of the big points which we'll talk about now and segue into this space battle clip is there's a problem with space battles, which is, do you simulate space as in there is no sound in space, by which you kind of make everything muffled and low, or do you make it sort of big and cinematic and Star Wars like, where you can still hear all of the explosions and all the laser beams and all that sort of stuff? I think you either have to choose one or the other. This is might be my hot take, but I think that you have to choose one or the other, because otherwise it gets a little bit confusing for the listener. Like, is there a sound in space? As in, is this like physically modeled or is it not? And I think here there are some sounds that are either lacking because they're like, they're in the ambience, or the inverse, where there are big explosions that sound like they would on Earth. So yeah, pick one or the other. I think that in this case, it will probably be fine to just have it like sound like real explosions and stuff.
I would say pick the other. Pick the making it sound real, because like we're not here to simulate space, and it's like, oh, there's nothing. Yeah, I think like, especially when it comes to a show reel, like we want to hear this stuff. No one is gonna be like, well, actually, there's no sound in space. Minus point. You know,
No, well, what I mean is, like, there are tasteful ways of doing it. Watch some gameplay footage of like Dead Space, or I mean, even the way that Modern Warfare does it, what is it, Infinite Warfare. The way that they do it is make it sound sort of like muffled and whatever, and then you can hear the like gunshots like within the cockpit and that.
yeah.
But yeah, I probably
Sorry,
wouldn't
sorry, John.
expect
That
to
was
hear
not a
like
dig
it.
at you, by the way. That was just like,
Oh no, no, I get you.
because it's a real. I think, yeah, just like go ham. And if it's a game, then we have to consider that a lot more, I would say. Where it's like, okay, what's the aesthetic of this? How real is it gonna be? But yeah. Anyway, let's just nitpick first clip a little bit. And yeah, unfortunately, we're very low on time. But we're gonna, I think, to be honest, all of these are very much the same points. I think that we're capturing. It's because I think all of these, in terms of like your style, is pretty consistent, and this will capture a lot. Right, so the biggest feedback, if I was your audio lead, what I would say here is we are missing the feeling of danger. I'm not feeling like this is high stakes. I'm not feeling like, oh my god, my ship might be hit at any point. I have to like steer this and steer clear. So what that means really is like having things that are happening around you, having things like potentially in the cockpit, like danger signals, having like the cockpit rattle, and potentially from like the shock blasts that are happening around you. So that's the inner space. And again, watch like fighter jet videos and stuff like that, and their alert sounds and things like that. Then the next thing is there's a ton of actual like shots that are all around. I want to hear kind of that, like shoo shoo, maybe some clanking of like some of the shrapnel actually hitting the ship, and it's like, ooh, close misses, and some of it has hit the ship. There's some great like World War II movies and games and stuff that have some really nice those kind of sounds in it. There's a new trailer, I think Masters of the Air, something like that, which has exactly that kind of dogfighting and that type of sound design. Um, and then I think in terms of the contrast, this UI sound here, the wind up of it, I feel like doesn't quite fit with the rest of the aesthetic. That is a very personal statement and taste, and John might totally disagree with me. But yeah, and also it just feels like super loud in terms of everything else. So I would just bring that down a little bit more. The actual like lock on is really cool though. I like that. The guns sound great, but I would love to hear more low end, more oomph. And yeah, I think like when we're boosting and stuff, I'm not feeling like it's changing in speed. I would really like to hear more nuance to the engine and to how it reacts to stuff. So this in games, especially like vehicles, they're really, really, really hard to do. And that is primarily because they need to be toys. They need to like react to everything that's happening in terms of player input. So yeah, check out like Star Citizen, I think it is, from Cloud Imperium, and like the fighter squadron games and stuff, and how their spaceships react to different movements and stuff. And again, like how does the ship itself like groan and with the strain that it's being put on, like, you know, space flying and the explosions around and stuff like that. Yeah, I think those are my main points. Mike, to you,
Yeah.
John.
Everything you said, like I just said, to Green 231. Yeah, having flybys and stuff of like, but you know, bullets and shrapnel and all that sort of stuff, like really just adds to the sense of danger. There are no rules, so yeah, put them in if it makes it sound better. And I would say it definitely makes it sound better, and really helps to sort of like sell the fact that you're in a battlefield. Also, you know, we're talking about ambience and stuff like that. Then I would put in a lot more like other explosions.
Yeah.
And like I was saying before about the consistency is that, you know, we hear this spaceship that you're in, but all I'm really hearing is the one sort of layer of the sort of like warbling kind of, you know, engine. And like you said, Greg, it would be good to get that to react more to the motions that are happening on screen, like really exaggerate them and stuff. But I would also say that if you're in space and you're in a spaceship that's going that fast, you're going to want to hear a lot more in terms of, you know, you might want to hear, you know, like a low rumble of the boosters, or especially when you're boosting or turning and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like you really want to hear the ship
You've
react
got
to stuff.
pitch and yaw in general as well for like spaceship. So spaceships like moving in 3D space. So with cars and stuff, we have like the RPM and velocity and gears and throttle and stuff like that, and braking. And for spaceships, we have like I think pitch, which is up and down, I believe, and yaw, which is side to side, or vice versa. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's like the spaceship
Yeah.
needs to react to doing this, that, and this and that, and then also like this boosting, like John said. Boost.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's the thing. I also think that you could probably like there's a lot of UI going on in the sort of cockpit and that, and I think that there's a moment where the reticle sort of locks on, but there's also another moment where there's like another little bit that locks onto the ship, and I would say just like try and pay even more detail and attention to like all parts of the UI really, and emphasize them because it is a very like techie, futuristic, sci-fi kind of like interface there. So yeah, I would say like go harder, add more, and sort of like um, try to yeah just like flesh it out a little bit, because I think that like a lot of the sounds are really really good sounds, but I think it's very much about sort of like the whole picture view to that you'd need to improve on to take this to the next level. But yeah, it's still a really, really cool clip, and it sounds really good, and the fidelity of a lot of the sounds really good.
Yeah.
So
Right. So
yeah, great
apparently,
work.
to correct myself, pitch is this, yaw is actually this, and then we have roll, which is this. So you have three, but usually it's mostly pitch and yaw that are game parameters for like spaceships, I guess. But yeah, roll as well. So those.
All of it, all
Just
rotations
to
in
be
the
accurate,
3D
just
3D space.
I don't want to be called out on my lacking knowledge of aero
Greg cancelled.
something, pilotry, dynamics, this, that, and the other thing. Anyway, yeah. So this kind of what we've been saying here really translates to pretty much all the other clips. It's really kind of like ammo
Greg,
details.
you cut out again.
Oh no, you just cut out as well
Start
for me,
again.
so it's me. I just said this basically translates to all the other clips what we said here. So the general takeaways are more details in terms of the storytelling and just like interactivity. So like what is happening, what does the player or the person like looking at the camera feel. In this clip it's like danger, here it's like anticipation and mystery, and then like again also danger, and like yeah, kind of like what is the pacing like, what is the cadence like, how can we really emphasize that with the sounds. Here I think a big one is just there's nothing happening around, so like what is happening around, how's the crowd reacting to what is happening, kind of like every time something happens the crowd might be ah! And then there's like obviously I don't know, like we're in an arena that is like I don't even know what's happening, but yeah, what is happening off camera, how can we fill out the scene here. And yeah, again with this also just like more details, a lot more non-literal stuff as well, like cinematic things, especially I mean there you have a little bit in there with the but yeah. Yeah, cool. I think those are like the biggest things. John, any further comments in terms of just like general feedback for the other clips from the first one?
Yeah, for sure. Everything applies. I think with the Battlefield uh, clip, the ambience feels like the biggest area for improvement. There doesn't really feel like if you close your eyes, can you hear that you're in like a big shipyard or a dock area? Can you hear seagulls? Can you hear water? Can you hear like boat horns? Can you hear like what sort of stuff can you hear? Because it is quite a quiet clip. So, and again, like we were talking about on the previous clips, is when there is action, duck all of those things, and when there isn't action, sort of like bring all of that up as well to kind of have like consistency of dynamics, but also, like point out the stuff that is relevant when it's on screen and that. I think the same could be said for the Mortal Kombat clip as well. And then yeah, the other thing for the Battlefield clip is to really go ham with the cinematics of it. Just go nuts. Big rises, lead-ins to stuff. Definitely like lead in between cuts. There's a moment right at the start where the guy is running off the tower, and there's a cut between like very close up running, and then another cut kind of between jumping off. And I think that you could probably go a little bit harder with the transitions of that. Maybe bring in bring in a riser there, and then sort of when you go into the flying squirrel suit, then sort of bring in a lot more like winds and things that add danger and tension to that scene. There are also some birds in the back there as well, and sort of like I want to hear those birds and the city and other stuff at that moment. So yeah, so on the one hand, it's easy to be like too literal, but on the other hand, the cuts are very informative of like stuff that you can add in. Um, yeah, that's pretty much everything for me. I think great work, and yeah, work on getting the consistency of all of those clips up together as well.
Awesome stuff. Well, thank you so much, Oren and James and Jake, for submitting your reels. Really, really good stuff. Yeah, excellent. And very excited to hear more of you guys. Absolutely killing it. And yeah, thanks for everyone who showed up in the stream as well, and hope you have a fantastic morning, day, or evening in whichever time zone you're at. And thank you, John, for joining me today. We have these every month-ish. I try to keep them consistently every month. If you want to submit your own reel, then you can go to, let me send the link into the chat. It is gameaudiolearning.com/reelreviews. I shall send the link in the chat. Here it is. And yeah, you'll be taken through the process basically, but I'm going to select your reel, and if it's chosen, it's going to go on here. If not, then you'll get feedback anyway, and have a chance to resubmit another time. So yeah, good stuff. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful week.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.